Hey guys, and welcome back. I am Rachel O'Leary, and sometimes things go easier than others. Today I wanted to take a look at the penjing and give you a bit of an update and some of the struggles I'm having with this thing. Now, if you're new here, this is my penjing, and it was installed on a live stream back at the end of August, and it's had some ups and downs. First off, penjing is sort of like a form of bonsai, which means this is supposed to appear to be a slice of nature, specifically a mountainside, done in miniature. In this example, over an aquarium, which is an Ultimate Nature System 60S. And the actual hardscape is called featherstone. And featherstone is inert, and it's carved with all these ridges, and it also is drilled with a center column that goes down onto a large plate to make this whole thing stable. And then at the very top, the filtration exits and basically hydrates this entire stone, allowing it to act as a big filter, but it also does have an Eheim canister filter on it. Now, at first glance, you may think that this thing's looking great, but let me tell you, I spent about 2 hours working on it today, and I really am struggling with this project. Now, part of it is probably because it wasn't my vision, it's not my plan, and I don't have any experience with this, but it's having some issues. So let's take a closer look and talk a bit more about that. This is actually my favorite angle for it currently. So as we look at the penjing, you can see that the ficus, or the bonsai trees themselves, these are Ficus salicifolia. I'll put a plant list down in the video description for you guys, is doing pretty well. Now, there's this one section where the leaves have died, and I should probably just clip that off because I don't see any green nodes at the end of this branch. Now, ficus are well known for dropping their leaves in time of stress, and if you're new here, these plants actually somehow managed during the install to get wedged inside the underside of my armchair, and we were in there for weeks. So it's pretty impressive that they've done as well as they can, or as they have. And one thing that I particularly like is, if we look behind this one, the moss is climbing up the trunk of this backmost ficus, and I think that looks really amazing. And I'm really happy with these two bigger bonsais in particular, and I think I'm going to bring some training wire down and do something similar with these guys. But even on this one here, if we look at the base, you can see that the moss is starting to climb the trunk, which is really cool. But these two just don't have the same stability as the larger ones, mainly because they're single little trees, and they're growing kind of cattywampus all over the place. So I would like to do something about that. So that is part of the good parts. The ficus look amazing, and I'm really happy with them. I'm also really pleased with how the moss is doing. It's very, very lush. It's carpeting the stone well. You can see in these brightest areas, this is lit by a Titan, and it's a lot of light. Some of these uppermost points have some brown tips, but for the most part, the moss is doing really cool stuff. And you can see also at the top the hairgrass which is Elaeocharis acicularis, that I replanted several weeks ago, is doing okay. It's riding the struggle bus a bit, but there is new growth. And if we look at the far side again, there's actually some really neat things happening over here, in that the hairgrass is throwing chains down the side of the mountain, which is really pretty cool. Now, during the install, contrasoil was used in the grooves that were carved in this rock, and then sphagnum was placed on top of it. In the most humid parts, you can see how great all the plants look. So these are the good points of of the penjing. Now let's look at the bad. Now the bulk of the rock here was supposed to be carpeted with Monte Carlo. And Monte Carlo is a common aquarium plant that generally does really well immersed. But this penjing has been struggling with, first of all, these huge patches of fungus. I just did a major cleanup on this, so there's not that much there. But you can see some here. Now I have added springtails, which are a little bug that eat things like fungus and organic decaying matter, and I'm hoping that they're helping. I also see patches of blue-green algae, which, if you guys know from another recent video, I am not a fan of. However, it's not in the water, so I imagine it's mainly because this is still, even though it's 2.5 months old at this point, it's still a pretty young setup. But you can see that the Monte Carlo, only in sparse little patches, is really doing well here. In fact, in most areas, it's just plain dead looking. And you may have noticed as well that there's a ton of anubias bonsai all over this thing. I just planted today. It was from one of my little nanos that I took out. I'm probably going to have to spray this pretty frequently in these first few weeks in order to maintain the humidity as these convert from underwater to out of water. But anubias bonsai is really cool because it's a super tiny little anubias species that grows sort of in these upright patterns, as you can see with these. So I think it'll look really cool climbing along the crevices of this rock. And I honestly have been so frustrated with this thing that I've been tempted to take it down, so I'm trying to find a way to love it. So adding in all this anubias, I think looks pretty cool, especially the textures with the bonsai and the anubias. I also added some suswassertang there. I added some more moss. I added some giant willow moss, if I can find it. Somewhere around here. Yeah, there. I added some giant willow moss, which is that neat stuff in the crevice there. And the hope is that maybe by adding more plants to this, that I think will do well. Hopefully it will rebound. Now the other sort of iffy news is, and I'm not sure if it's because of all the fungus and crap that's been growing on this and dripping into the water column, is that the inhabitants inside the aquarium are really not doing well. I'm maintaining this as I would any other aquarium, but I see very little signs of life. Now, to be clear, I haven't found any bodies. There's nothing on the floor around the tank. There's nothing in the canister. But as we look close, I don't see my shrimp. I don't see my crabs. Now, there is this giant cave underneath the whole structure, and it's possible they're chilling in there. But I just don't know, and I have to tell you, I'm scared to, oh wait, there's a shrimp. There's a shrimp. So maybe things are not totally desperate, but you can see the little orange eyes right there. It's one of the orange eye blue tigers there, but I can tell you I'm pretty worried about the health of this overall setup. Now all the plants I put in the water are doing really well, and in fact I even added some more moss just under the water surface here, because I think it looks neat. So I guess it's entirely possible that most of my critters are hanging out in all of these caves and crevices that are around, but I would expect to see more of the shrimp. Again, I haven't seen any bodies, but I'm pretty nervous about it. So, you know, I guess the moral of the story is some things go easier than others, and this is just an example of one that is not going easily. As always, I thank you guys for your continued support. Make sure you're subscribed with that notification bell on so you don't miss any of my upcoming videos. And let me know down in the comments if you have any suggestions for me with this thing. I work with a lot of plants, both aquatic, terrestrial, specialized needs, super fancy, super rare, super expensive. And I don't think I've ever been quite as frustrated as I am by this Monte Carlo. Now I do think, again, the addition of all this anubias is going to make a big difference in how I feel about this project. But I'm really frustrated.